My name is Alan Norton. I am a workforce development executive with the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, and we're the State Chamber of Commerce. Before I get into the work we're doing in terms of workforce development and what in-demand careers look like in PA today and how to get them, I want to make sure you know what a chamber is and what we do, because honestly, before I came to the chamber 2 years ago, I didn't know what a Chamber of Commerce was. So really quick, I'm going to change the screen here and show you, just to give you an idea, who some of our members are. We represent about 10,000 businesses across the state at the legislature. So we employ a team. We're the state's largest broad-based business advocacy organization. So basically what that means is we lobby the state government to ensure the state has business-friendly policies so that business both want to set up shop here to create jobs, but also so that the businesses that are here want to stay here. So we are kind of a mediator between the legislature and the business community. And we also put on a lot of education events for the business community. So as I scroll through this list, like I said, we represent about 10,000 companies. This is just a small sampling of some of the members we represent and who actually my messaging today is coming from. So hopefully as I scroll through this list, you guys recognize a good chunk of these companies. And as I scroll through this, I think what's hopefully obvious is we represent a diverse array of organizations. And this also speaks to what Pennsylvania's jobs economy looks like. I'll give you my quick elevator speech on PA and why PA is such a great place. PA has the most diverse economy in the country. We're the #2 natural gas producer in the country, 8th in manufacturing. So we have the 8th biggest footprint in manufacturing in the nation. Down in the Southeast in the Philly area, that's the 6th largest media market in the country. Where you guys are in the Pittsburgh area is the Tech and Biotech Center of Pennsylvania. And actually, as you're going to see in a little while, it's starting to become the Tech and Biotech Center of the country. Of course, down in Philly, we have, I like to call it Eds and Meds, huge education sector. And a huge healthcare footprint, lots of pharmaceutical research and healthcare companies there. So a lot of good things going on here in PA. Let me go back to the PowerPoint here. So why are we the state's biggest advocacy organization for businesses involved in workforce development? Well, that's part of our advocacy. Workforce started to show up in our surveys back in 2016 as a concern for companies. And every year for about the past 40 years, we do an economic survey of businesses to find out, how do you like being in PA and doing business in PA? What concerns you about doing business in PA? What keeps you up at night? And in 2018, for the first time ever, the #1 issue that was keeping business owners up at night was the shortage of skilled and qualified workers to fill jobs that are open today. In 2019, it remained #1, but climbed by 14%. 14% more respondents said, yeah, this is our biggest issue. And I think that's interesting because what's happened over the past 50 years? Over the past 50 years, we've sent 66% of our students to college. So you would think that students are graduating with the skills employers want. But what we're not paying attention to is what's happening on the back end after we send those 66% of students to college. So that's why we're here to talk to you today, to make sure that you come out of school prepared to fill the skilled jobs that are available today as well as into the future. I mentioned earlier, of course, Pittsburgh's tech boom. This is exciting. This is from back in July. If you haven't seen this yet, from May to June. So think about what was happening in May and June. We were at the height of the pandemic. We were just barely we weren't even coming out of lockdown yet, really. And your tech job postings soared 44%. Pittsburgh became the #1 city for tech job openings in the whole country. We knew eventually you'd surpass San Francisco. We just didn't think it would be during a pandemic. So there's a lot of great things happening in Pittsburgh where you guys are. in terms of tech, and it's just going to keep growing because of the I like to say, growth begets growth. So you're going to continue to see that happening. And what this means is we need folks with digital skills. We need folks with technical skills, but we also need to make you aware of what those skills are and what those jobs are. So that's part of what today is about. To help you guys make good decisions, we created a website that I hope you'll visit, starttheconversationhere.com. That's really aimed at making you aware of what are the most in-demand jobs in PA, what does the job landscape look like across PA, and how do I get into those jobs that I'm interested in? There's a lot of misconceptions out there about how we get into good jobs and what you do to get into a good job. But hopefully this website and some of the resources I give you today will help you kind of overcome some of those misconceptions and realize that PA is really an awesome place to stay, work, and play. As part of our initiative, we also partnered back in 2016 with the MicroWorks Foundation to begin offering scholarships to students interested in pursuing a skilled trade. If you're a PA student attending a PA school for a skilled trade, so out in your area, we actually usually end up with a few students who go to Rosedale Tech who get this scholarship. But if you're interested in a skilled trade such as HVAC or a construction trade, maybe a mechatronics engineer, truck driving, this is a scholarship you can apply for. The scholarship goes live in early July at microworks.org and stays open till the end.
Wait a second. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm sorry. Somebody else called me. I was telling them to wait. Just a minute, please. Hang on.
Oh, okay. So microworks.org is the website if you want to go see what you can do to apply. What we do is we raise money from the businesses here in PA towards our foundation, and then that money goes to What happened? How did I mute? Really, this is about drawing awareness to the need for folks in the skilled trades. You're going to hear in a little while a lot about mechatronics engineers. Previous to joining the chamber, I worked for 7 years at our local community college. Mechatronics engineers was one of the most in-demand programs we had in terms of job opportunities. Kids were coming out and they didn't even have to apply for a job. Companies were just coming in and picking them. But when I would go into high schools, there were very few students who ever heard of that job. And that's normal. We're going through an industrial revolution. But this scholarship opportunity is really designed to both grow the awareness as well as give you the opportunity to get some funding to help you pay for that training. So since 2016, we've raised and donated almost $275,000 to 112 PA students so we can keep their skills here in the Commonwealth. So hopefully we'll get one of you guys on this call or girls a scholarship award here in the next year as well. We also just announced we'll be starting a new scholarship. This is actually live now. We just announced this about a month ago. One of our member environmental companies set up an environmental engineering and environmental scholarship, science scholarship. So if you're interested in pursuing one of those majors, then certainly get in touch with me. My email address is there at the bottom, and I can send you an application. But this is an opportunity to get some money to help you pay for your environmental degree as well. So before we can help you make use of some of these tools and resources, we have to arm you with the facts. I mentioned earlier, we've been sending about 66% of the students to college and university. The world I grew up in, probably the world your teachers grew up in, I can't remember very often when I was asked as a child what I wanted to do as an adult, what I wanted to be when I grow up. Conversation was, where are you going to go to college? What college are you looking at? What college are you going to go to? Then after college, you figured out where you wanted to work, what you wanted to do. Well, now the conversation has to be different because the world of education and the world of business have kind of parted ways as we go through this industrial revolution. So the conversation now should be, what do you want to do for a career and how do you get there? If it's college, great. Let's find a college that you can afford that'll get you there. If it's not, great. What are the options? And there are a lot of pathways into careers as you're going to learn. So here's the facts. Did you know? So we said we send about 65, 70% of our students to college. Only 41% of the students who we send to college actually graduate with a bachelor's degree in 4 years. So more than half aren't graduating in 4 years. Only a little more than half, 59%, actually make it to graduation. Somewhere along the way, 41% drop out, get stuck with some of the debt, and don't make it to the degree. At the same time, it's really important majors matter. I said earlier about, businesses in PA, and this isn't just in PA, this is all across the country, have said this is a big issue. We can't find folks to fill the jobs we have. Majors matter. 43% of those who make it to graduation are underemployed. They're working in a job they didn't need to go to college for. The reason you hear so much about STEM and STEAM careers is because those are the students who go out and make use of their degree. That's where you're seeing this trend the lowest. Graduates with engineering degrees, computer science degrees, math, physical science, health science degrees. There's a job waiting for them. But if you're going to college simply to go to college, or I'm just pursuing this degree, it's something I'm interested in, but there's no career pathway, chances are you're going to end up being one of those 43% that are underemployed. And again, underemployed doesn't mean you're unemployed. It means you're working in a job that's beneath the level of training you have. And the statistics actually show most of these 43% are working in jobs they could have gotten right out of high school, saved the money, saved the time, and started working right away. So now that you have those facts, it's time you make some good decisions about post-secondary options. So your education is going to be the first big investment you make. How do you make sure, since it's an investment, you want to earn that money back as quickly as possible so you have a profitable life? That's why I have the term ROI there. If you ever watch the show Shark Tank, ROI is really important in that show. Before Mark Cuban makes an offer to a business, he wants to figure out, what's my return on investment going to be, and how quickly am I going to earn my investment back? So if one of you guys in this class have a business idea and you're thinking about going on Shark Tank, if you go on Shark Tank and you say, hey, I only need this $250,000 in seed money and we can make this really take off. And Mark Cuban says, you know what, I'm going to give you that $250,000. He's never giving anyone $250,000. If he did that, he wouldn't be a billionaire. He's investing. He's figuring out, while he's sitting there listening to your pitch, I can get this $250,000 back with this business plan in about 2 years. And then after I make that $250,000 back, the rest of the time I'm investing in that company, it's all income, profit in my bottom line. So college should be the same way. If I'm going to go out and spend $50,000 or $100,000 on my education, I better darn well make that back within the next 2 or 3 years so that the rest of my life is profitable. And actually, there's ways to make it back a lot quicker than that. And we created a tool to help you with that. The tool is the career calculator, and it does just that. It helps you calculate your educational return on investment and figure out, how much am I going to have to pay for this when it's all said and done? What are my student loans going to look like? How much money am I going to have left based on my salary and college costs? So I actually have some prepared scenarios to go over with you. But I hope you'll go into the Start the Conversation Here webpage, play with this calculator on your own, and then you can really get an idea of what cost of college is versus what you'll make as an income. So I'm going to tell you 2 stories of folks I know who are in the workforce now who went to their local community college. But as I do that, I want to make sure that I uncover some myths and show some facts. So I have some bold print here. What that means by the national demand exceeds the available supply in healthcare. So if you took all the job openings right now in America in healthcare, CNAs and medical assistants, nurses, doctors, ophthalmologists, physical therapists, surgeons, and then you took all the folks who are currently in the supply line, either at a CTE high school for medical assisting or CNA, at a college or university or trade school, training for a health career, there's still 1.2 million job openings more than there are folks in the supply line ready to go train for work. So the reason I mention that is because of supply and demand. When you guys learned about supply and demand in economics class, it was probably in terms of price. When there's a high supply of a product, but a low demand for it, prices go down. When there's a low supply of a product, but a high demand for it, prices go up. Think about if you went to the T-Mobile store right now and said, give me an original iPhone, first iPhone that ever came out 13 years ago. First, they'd probably laugh at you, and then they'd give it to you. Here, take it. We don't want it anymore, assuming they still had one on their shelves because of supply and demand. No one wants the iPhone 1 anymore. They all want the iPhone 11 and 12. But the iPhone 12 is in high demand because it's brand new and there's less supply of it. then there is demand for it, so prices are higher. The iPhone 11, the price on that dropped pretty quickly when the iPhone 12 came out, because now all of a sudden the demand went. Well, wages work the same way. If there's a high demand for a certain skill set in the workforce, but a low supply of workers with that skill set, wages go up. If there's a high supply of workers with the same skill, but a low demand for that skill set, wages go down. And one of the areas you're seeing that is healthcare. I mentioned at a community college. When I first went to work at the community college, that would have been about 8 years ago. And if you would have asked me then, what's someone graduate with the RN program? If I graduate as an RN, what can I expect to make when I go to work? I would have told you back then probably about $45,000, $50,000 a year to start. Today, if you go on to UPMC's website, Geisinger's website, WellSpan's website, you'd be hard pressed to find an RN job that pays less than $62,000 a year to start. So in about 6 or 7 years' time, you've seen that starting salary go up by about $15,000 to $20,000 because of supply and demand. There's a huge demand for nurses, but there's a lack of supply. So wages are skyrocketing. So I'm going to tell you a story about a young lady named Mackenzie, and I'm going to do this as I share the career calculator with you. So Mackenzie went to school for a program called medical sonography. And what medical sonography is ultrasound. They work in hospitals, and I like to call the medical sonographers the detectives. They're looking for things that aren't supposed to be there. Occasionally, they do look at babies, but for the most part, they're the ones who discover tumors. You know, if you have something growing inside you and you want to find out what it is, doctor's going to send you to a diagnostic medical sonographer. They're going to use the sonography machine to figure out what is that, how big is it, and then they're going to give that sonogram to the doctor to talk with you about what it is. So that's what a sonographer does. So when you go to start the conversation here, this is what the homepage looks like. You click on the menu bar. There's the career calculator. When this opens up, you've got to accept the terms of use that this is just an estimate. But basically, the way this works, you can choose any career from the dropdown, the data pools from ONET, and what it's going to show you is the average starting salary. Not the average salary, the starting salary, because that is going to give you a more accurate picture of what your life's going to look like when you first graduate. So for Mackenzie, she went to school for sonography. So if I choose that, you can expect as medical sonographer, when you first graduate, you'll make about $53,000 a year. $52,770 is the average starting salary. Now, because we're the PA chamber, we have all the colleges in PA listed here. Of course, I mentioned she went to community college for that. For you guys, you're out in Allegheny County, so we'll choose CCAC. They're actually a proud member of the chamber. We love our friends at CCAC. And I mentioned it's a 2-year degree. And then if you're borrowing all of that money, the loan terms are already populated. Now, one thing we made flexible here is the tuition, because we realized not everyone pays the tuition a school offers. Some folks get grants, some folks get scholarships. So if you do, you can deduct that from here. If you're going to have room and board costs, like when you choose a college, if it's a college you have to live on campus at, that's just going to populate the tuition. So the tuition at IUP is $13,129 for a year for a state resident. If you add room and board to that, obviously it's going to increase the cost. So you can increase this to reflect what room and board will cost. But for our purposes, again, let's go back to Community College of Allegheny County and figure out Mackenzie's situation. So when we calculate this, what it's going to show you is this black bar is her first year income, or her return on her investment for her first year. This orange bar is her total investment, assuming she borrowed all the money to go to college. So her tuition cost was $93.30 for 2 years in community college. Her interest, if she borrowed all that money, and her total loan amount totals just about $12,000. So she only has to work about 4 months in a career that pays $53,000 a year to start to earn that back. Once she's been in the job market 4 months, she's earned back her investment. From that point forward, it's all profit. Assuming she borrows all that money, only 3% of her income's going towards student loans. Her student loan's $97 a month. Look at how much she has left over at the end of the month after her student loan's paid off. $3,289 still at the end of each month. That's a very attractive starting salary for someone just starting out. Right now, the average income for someone with a bachelor's degree just starting out in Pennsylvania is about $19 an hour. This is about $23, $24 an hour. With that kind of income, you can actually double, even triple your payments, pay off that student loan in 3 to 5 years instead of 10 years, and still have quite a bit of money left over. Now, just to give you an idea of how the choices we make impact our financial future, let's go with an inexpensive state school. Include that room and board cost. Now you're going to be there for 2 more years. Now, when we calculate it, watch what happens. Now, these numbers flipped. Now, my investment went from a little over 11,000 to 124,000. Now, instead of 4 months, I have to work over 2 years to earn back my investment. And now look, my student loan's $1,000 instead of $79 a month. I have $1,000 left in my pocket than I did the previous route. 31% versus 3% of my monthly income going to student debt. Because the starting salary is what it is. Doesn't matter where you go to college, what type of training you have, the starting salary is what it is. Going to a really expensive school isn't going to change that starting salary. Teachers' starting salaries are what they are. Doctors' starting salaries are what they are, regardless of where you went. Now let's go in and type in a really expensive college and see what happens. And I'm not even going to add the room and board costs. I'm just going to keep it tuition. Now look at that. Now my educational investment's $300,000. I've got to work 5 years, and now my student loan and my income have reversed. What's left is more than what my student loan should be, and my student loan is that's a monthly income for some people. So this really paints a picture of how your college and career decisions can impact your financial future. So let's go back to the PowerPoint here. I want to show you a couple other healthcare roles that are in demand. Of all the professions in PA that just require an associate's degree, dental hygienist is the highest demand right now. And again, this is an average salary. This isn't an average starting salary. Average starting salary for dental hygienist is closer to what Mackenzie made as a medical sonographer. But once you've been in the field a couple of years, you'll reach that middle point, and then a few more years, you'll reach that high end. According to labor and industry here in PA, we need 19,000 new nurses, not replacement nurses, new nurses through 2026 in the next 5 years. So again, think about supply and demand when you look at these roles, and think about in 6 years, if nurses right now can make $62,000 a year to start when they graduate from college, imagine 5 years from now what that salary is going to look like. And then the reason I put these together is you don't want to just think about what skill set you have and what salary you want to make, but also what's your work-life balance going to look like. Dental hygienists and RNs make very similar salaries, but their work-life balance is very different. Hospitals are open 365, 24/7. So nurses work holidays, weekends, overnight stays. Dental hygienists work at dentist offices, which are typically open 8 to 5, Monday through Thursday. Most dentists are closed on Friday. So you work 4 hours or 4 days a week, business hours. You have your holidays off. You have your weekends off. You have your evenings free. So really, these are other things to take into consideration as well when you're thinking about a career path. Now, healthcare is not for everybody. I would be an awful nurse. I'm a sympathetic vomiter. If I walk in the room and you're vomiting, we're going to do this together. Can't do that when you're a nurse. So let's talk about some of the other in-demand STEM careers that are out there. And again, I'm going to overcome a myth that's out there. Yes, sometimes I get so frustrated. I don't even watch the news anymore. I get so frustrated sometimes when I see them talk about the coming job crisis and automation crisis. It's not a crisis. We've been here 3 times before. This is our 4th industrial revolution. Every time we go through one, yes, certain entry-level menial jobs go away, but guess what? They're replaced with more higher skilled jobs. So yes, about 75 million jobs have already started going away. Will continue to go away for another year or so, but almost twice as many new jobs, technical jobs, are being created. When we think about automation and robots don't work by themselves. We need folks who can fix them when they break down, who can keep them up and running. Just like your car needs regular maintenance. You have to get an oil change every 5,000 miles. You have to get the tires replaced. Robots and automation systems and computer systems, as we all know, need replaced and kept up also. We have folks in research and development. Earlier, I mentioned the iPhone 1 and the iPhone 12. Worlds of difference between the iPhone 1 and the iPhone 12, because we have folks in engineering who work in research and development who are constantly figuring out how to make these things bigger, better, faster, stronger. So wealth of new opportunities opening up with this technology. So I'm going to tell you about a young lady named Jess I know. She lives actually down in York, PA, about a half hour south of where I am. She went to school for mechatronics engineering. Again, one of the most in-demand career paths, not just in America, but here in PA, since we rank 8th in manufacturing nationwide, huge demand for mechatronics engineers. So I liken mechatronics engineers to almost like auto mechanics, but instead of working on cars, they work on robots and automation systems and all that cool electronic and computer equipment that you see in factories, and in like Hershey Foods is right here about 15 minutes from my house. They're constantly looking for mechatronics engineers. So the reason I'm telling you Jess's story is not just because she's a female in mechatronics engineering, and not just because mechatronics engineering is so in demand, but there's another part of the story I want to make sure I tell you. When she got hired, look at that starting salary. It actually went up from what medical sonography was. It went up by almost $1,000. So when she went in for her interview, the HR manager hired her. The way Jess tells the story, when she got hired, the HR manager said, because you don't have any real world experience yet, you just have your associate's degree, we can only pay you $24 an hour. Only $24 an hour. In addition, because they have a shortage of folks doing the job, they have unlimited overtime on the weekends. So on Saturdays, she makes time and a half. On Sundays, she makes double time. So I imagine most of you watching this would be willing to give up an NFL Sunday to go work for a few hours if someone was going to pay you $48 an hour. So it's not unusual in this career path that even though her starting salary was about $53,000 a year, many of these guys and girls make six figures their first year because of the overtime opportunities. So let's look at Jess's situation. If she went to, we'll choose Beaver County Community College. How about that this time, since they're out your way? And they're a little more expensive than CCAC, but not much. All right, so when we calculate Jess's situation, again, it looks very similar to Jess's. She works about 5 months to earn back her total educational investment. And then from that point forward, her investment has been returned. It's all profit. Her student loan, if she borrowed all that money, which you don't have to borrow all of that money, her student loan would only be $139 a month. What's left is still $3,300 at the end of each month in her pocket to do whatever she wants with. This is a young lady who, just like Mackenzie, you could graduate college at 20 with your associate's degree and be moved out of your parents' house by the time you're 21. Think about the number of students we've seen in the past decade who can't move out of their parents' house because they've got a mortgage with the student loans they're paying. There are ways to get students into good paying jobs without that. So only 5% of her debt income goes towards her student debt. So she could knock that up to 15%, pay this off in like 2.5, 3 years if she borrowed all that money. And again, if I'm thinking, hey, I want to go to a prestigious college so that I get some recognition, again, starting salary is what it is. The employer doesn't care where you went to college, what the name of the college was. They care, what can you do for me? How are you going to add value to my company? So again, look at that. The difference would be you're adding 5 years to your student loan payback almost, and your income and your student loan payments are reversed. So hopefully you'll go on, start the conversation here, play with this yourself to figure that out. As I mentioned earlier, the mechatronics program is one that qualifies for the MicroWorks Foundation scholarship, as are all of these careers. Look at the bottom bullet point there, the average salary for a plumber and electrician. These are careers you can get into with apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is growing huge across the state. Companies are signing up to become registered apprenticeship because they can't find people. So instead of you paying to go to school and learn to be an electrician or a plumber, now the company is going to pay you while you learn on the job. That's how our grandparents used to get jobs. They'd go work somewhere and they'd learn on the job. That's kind of getting back to that now. Actually, one of our electric companies was telling me the other day, their program at CCAC is about a year long, costs about $5,000. If you successfully graduate, there's a job waiting for you with a starting salary of $70,000 a year. $70,000 a year starting. So if you went out of high school, let's say 19 years old, graduated at 20 years old, you'd be making $70,000 a year. Think about that as an electric lineman. Truckers, we need 7,500 drivers just here in PA in the next decade to keep up with demand, and construction jobs too. So there's a huge wealth of opportunity in the skilled trades, especially because we have a retirement boom going on right now. And for the past 40 years, we really haven't paid attention to these job opportunities. So huge opportunities where you don't have to go into a lot of debt. And in some cases, you don't have to go into any. I have a neighbor who's a plumber. He works for a company and has a salary, but he works on the side just to show up at someone's house on his own to do plumbing work. He charges $125. If he shows up at my house and doesn't do any work, I still got to pay him $125 for that 10 or 15 minutes he was here doing a diagnosis, because he has a skill and tools that I don't. And that many homeowners don't. So think about that. Skills are what's important. Now, again, a lot of this we've been talking about alternatives to bachelor's degree. These are all schools that are members of the chamber. We're proud of the work all of them are doing. But again, if you are thinking about a career that requires a 4-year degree, the question should be, what do I want to do for a living and how do I get there? And if it is a 4-year degree, like if you want to be an engineer, if you want to get into cybersecurity, oh my gosh, we ended last year with almost 500,000 cybersecurity jobs open in the country. I think the number was 400,000. That's a huge opportunity. And again, when you think about supply and demand, cybersecurity analysts are seeing their salaries go up and up and up because of that demand. Just to give you an aside, I read an article recently, chief technical officers on the West Coast. So you've heard of CEOs, they oversee the company. You've heard of CFOs, probably chief financial officers. They oversee the finance departments and accounting departments. So chief technical officers oversee the technology departments, the networking engineers, the computer scientist folks. On the West Coast, firms are paying CTOs $6.5 million salaries because of supply and demand. They have a skill there's a lack of supply of. So I figured it out. If you break that $6.5 million salary down over 26 pay periods, that's $250,000 every pay period. Even after taxes, that's still like $125,000. So that's a role you'd work your way up to. But you start as a cybersecurity analyst and then you work your way up. If that's the other thing I want to end on is think of your job that you're interested in, not as an end point, but a starting point. You're going to do what's called a career path. I'll use my friend Rachel as an example. Her goal was to be a nurse. So she went to school to become an RN, got her 2-year degree, became an RN, went to work here at a local hospital in Hershey, decided, you know what, I want to go further. So they invested in her to get a bachelor's degree, and then they invested in her to get a master's degree. So she ended up at the same point as, let's say you graduate high school and you go all the way through that master's in nursing and you pay for it yourself. She ended up at the same point, but all she paid for was her associate's degree because she went to work as an RN and then said, hey, I want to get to that point and be a nurse practitioner or a nurse anesthetist. So along the way, the company paid for that education. And then when she graduated with that master's degree, now she can be a nurse practitioner or nurse anesthetist. The company not only invested in her education, but now they're going to double her salary because she has that type of credential that requires that. So find other ways for other companies to invest in you as well. And scholarships. I can't say scholarships enough. I've seen various statistics, but it seems to be about $2 million a year in scholarships go untouched, unapplied for. So please apply for scholarships. There's lots of free money out there to help you pay for it if you do have to get a bachelor's degree. And we have a lot of great colleges here in PA doing great work to help you get there. But be wise in your decisions. And don't go there just because of the name. Go there because of what skills they can give you. So with that, I'll wrap it up. Any questions? And thank you again for the opportunity to hang out and talk to you guys about the messages from businesses in PA.